partnering with a group like Bigger Pockets is really having that resource behind us to do what we want to do for the community, build the tools that we want to do, grow the education, do all these things that we could never find the time to pull the trigger on. We hope we can really help enhance that. And because we're partnering and going along, we hope we can continue to push that through.
Hello, left fielders. Welcome to the Passive Investing from Left Field podcast. Our community is focused on networking and education to help people invest passively and think differently. Let's go. Welcome to a special episode of Passive Investing from Left Field. I'm your host, Jim Pfeiffer, and I'm excited to have all of the founders of LFI here with us, Sean Donnelly and Steve Sue, Chad Ackerman, Ryan Steig, and Pat Wills. We are all here. This is the first time we've done a podcast with more than one guest, so 5 guests. This is going to be interesting. But we wanted to start out, we started LFI in 2020, and the goal was to build a community of like-minded individuals interested in creating financial freedom through passively investing in real estate to produce real cash flow. Our focus has always been on the LP investor, and we're most proud of the culture that was built by the community. And that culture came from our members. We have always been and we remain committed to sustaining and building on that culture and building out LFI to what we've always thought it would be. That said, at this point, the commitment all of the founders have to this community, and you'll hear all of us talk about that as we go through this, but that commitment currently exceeds the resources we have to continue this journey independently. That is why we are absolutely thrilled to announce that Left Field Investors is merging with Bigger Pockets, and we're going to become PassivePockets. Our passion for sharing resources and collaborating with others who share our left field mindset will not change. We will continue to deliver a welcoming, best-in-class community experience for our members while maintaining the culture that was built by our community. So our goal here is we'd like to use this podcast to reflect on the journey LFI has been on over the past 4 years and to share our excitement about the future with this great partner, Bigger Pockets. So we're going to start with a discussion, some of the benefits of the partnership. We're just going to jump right in with Ryan. Ryan, can you talk about the alignment in the mission that LFI has and that Bigger Pockets and now PassivePockets will have?
Yeah, I think one of the encouraging things is from the very beginning of the discussions about this potential with Bigger Pockets and the senior leadership team at Bigger Pockets, there was an immediate alignment of interests to continue creating and enhancing a trusted community where investors can get educated, network with each other, and to find deals and operators. And that initial alignment was really encouraging for this potential partnership, which we're really excited about. And that alignment will carry through forward as we transition into our Bigger Pocket or our PassivePockets chapter.
And in those discussions, we've been in those discussions, and it seemed like there was almost too much alignment in where they were going and where we were going. Can you talk a little bit? And I joke when I say too much, but we agreed on so many things. Can you talk a little bit about how that helped this process?
Yeah, I think anytime you're combining something that has so many members, Bigger Pockets. I mean, we all know Bigger Pockets. All of us started or at some point in our journey, we're Bigger Pockets members, and we're going through that active journey. And so to see alignment for how we transitioned into LFI or the community that LFI is today, it was interesting to see that natural alignment and that we didn't have to discuss a lot of the why behind it. We all know investing isn't easy. And we've all found through LFI that investing through and with a community where you can network with others, you can learn to be a better investor, and you can community deals. To have that alignment right from the beginning was just really part of what was a catalyst for this happening, is to have that natural alignment where we didn't have to work to find it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And then Pat, we've talked about the combination of LFI's knowledge. We've been through a lot in those 4 years and learned a lot. The relationships that we have with partners and members, and the culture, of course, which is what I think we're all most proud of. But you combine that with Bigger Pockets, right? The experience they have in the investing world, the resources they have in the brand name. Can you talk about how all that is just kind of accelerate PassivePockets and really get it off to a great start?
Yeah, like Ryan mentioned and like you just mentioned, Jim, we all kind of at least myself, started my journey with Bigger Pockets and then kind of decided that active real estate investing wasn't for me, migrated to turnkeys, and then eventually got to syndications. And the reason Bigger Pockets, we kind of grew out of that was that, real estate, active real estate isn't a security. All these private investments and syndications are securities. So the terminology, the metrics, the regulations, the rules are completely different. So it's a completely different animal. And I don't know about you all, but when I'm talking about this type of thing at my W-2, they all tell me that I'm crazy for, not maxing out my 401k and just investing in index funds and all that. So to find a community of people that you're able to talk about that type of thing and have them not think you're insane and actually look at some of the same operators and see like, oh, okay, this guy doesn't pass the smell test, or I really had a good experience here. Let's talk about that some more and just compare notes. It's really a home for people that really didn't have one elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree. And I think part of it is with Bigger Pockets that, our mission has always been, let's spread this as wide as we can, right? Because as you mentioned, the people at your job might think you're crazy, the stuff you're doing, but there might be a few there that want to jump on board with us. So I think the Bigger Pockets bringing their just heft of the brand name and the resources they have is really going to help this whole industry, right, of syndication investing really grow. And that brings us to Chad. We hate to say it, but at some point LFI outgrew the resources that we had, right, to be able to produce what we wanted to produce. So can you talk about kind of how Bigger Pockets is going to help out with the resource issue that's going to allow, PassivePockets to do everything that LFI always wanted to do?
Yeah, it probably took about 5 days for us to outgrow our resources, to be honest.
True.
But if you think back to the start of Left Field, we did build this intending it to be just a group of people sitting around the table. We didn't have a vision of a business involved. So one of the struggles that we've always had is wanting to grow the community that benefited, or grow Left Field to benefit the community. But resources, financial resources specifically, have always been a struggle. We've been lucky to have some people raise their hand and volunteer, and you can only take volunteering so far. It grew to a point where we really needed dedicated people to it. We've been holding it together with duct tape and Bondo as long as we could, but that's the one thing that we're really excited about partnering with a group like Bigger Pockets, is really having that resource behind us to do what we want to do for the community, build the tools that we want to do, grow the education, do all these things that we could never find the time to pull the trigger on. We hope we can really help enhance that. And because we're partnering and going along, we hope we can continue to push that through.
Yeah, well said. And I think one of the things that we all have talked about, the concern of joining a big company like Bigger Pockets, is the culture, right? We don't want to, that's the most important thing. We don't want to lose the culture that was built by our members. So Steve, can you talk about that? How we're going to maintain the LFI culture inside of this larger company, inside of PassivePockets, and how the culture will actually be enhanced by being part of this partnership?
Yeah, it's been great that Bigger Pockets has been willing to listen to our ideas and be fully aligned with what we're doing. They obviously had their own agenda and ideas as well. However, they've been listening to the leadership of LFI, and so we hope that we can continue having this community of left fielders over into PassivePockets and continue our community feel. Because we're all like-minded individuals who are, striving for the same kinds of goals. And Bigger Pockets on a bigger level, they have not only passive investors but also active investors. But since they want to branch off into the passive space and do this PassivePockets, I'm glad that they reached out to us and we were able to align our goals together so that we can have our membership continue on with the same kind of community feel that we've had all for these last 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could tell just by listening to, the people on this podcast, all of us founders here, that we do have a deep passion for this community and what we set up to do. And this, the partnership is the absolute best way forward to us. I have no doubt about that. But Sean, can you talk about how that passion for this community that we all have made us realize that partnering with somebody like Bigger Pockets is the way to go and how it's going to be best for the community moving forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys have pretty much hit on all those points. You know, it started in March of 2020, and it was created with purpose and passion. And I think that comes out in everything that we do and everything that we say and everything that we put together, whether it's a meetup here in Columbus or through BEC. Everything was done with purpose and passion. And being able to do that as a 6-man band, and the struggles, the effort, and the time constraints that we've all been up against is well documented. So, partner with BiggerPockets, their resources there that they have, the content that they're going to be able to bring to the table is what our community deserves. And so that partnership is plainly obvious. And their two core tenets, if you will, line up with ours, which is community and education. That's what we created this LFI when it was CPIG, for those listening that go back far enough to understand and know what CPIG stood for. It was all about education and trying to be smarter investors. And BiggerPockets is the best in the real estate business as far, as far as community and education goes. So we align with our two most important core fundamental basic beliefs right there with community and education. So it's just, it makes a lot of sense for us to align ourselves and partner with BiggerPockets. So I'm very excited about that for that reason alone.
Yeah, that's well said, and I think just working with the leadership at BiggerPockets and PassivePockets, it's made clear to us that they have a similar passion, not just for real estate generally and not just for active real estate, but the people that are running PassivePockets, the people that are really in the building of PassivePockets are similar to us, and that they just think, man, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of ways that we can protect and help LPs, and that's what they're going to be committed to. And now we're going to be able to do it together with a bunch of resources. So super excited about that and appreciate everyone kind of chipping in and kind of talking about what we think is going forward. But Pat, you got another comment here.
Yeah, I mean, we on some of the calls that we've been having about this, when we're kind of brainstorming ideas with BiggerPockets, I think the most common thing we've all either said or heard was, wow, we had that exact same idea. Let's just run with it. So in terms of alignment, yes, we can all say that, but just by having these ideas and having parallel thinking from two separate groups of people who are passionate about this, I think was really valuable as well.
Yeah, good point. So now I'd like to kind of move on and talk about a little bit, go back in time and talk about some of the highlights of our years in LFI. We'll start with you, Chad. What's the best part of working with the community like Left Field Investors? And then kind of a sub question, because I know you like me to ask multiple questions at once. Please. How are you going to ensure that PassivePockets has those same qualities?
That's a great couple questions, Jim. I think there's so many things. I think the highlight has been working with the community members, the people that have joined. And I think that was really emphasized when we've held local meetups to get that face-to-face time with individuals, and to have individuals come up to us and tell us that we changed their lives, that they thank us for all the help that we provided. I think that's all amazing. And I don't know that we had the intent in getting to that kind of space when we started this, but it's where we landed and we grew it because that's how we wanted to be treated as well. That's why we didn't go join some other communities. We kind of started forming our own. But I think that you get the same feel from BiggerPockets events and being engaged with them, that it just does not seem like it's a large leap to take the community feel that we have at Left Field and pass it on over to the other side. The one perk is we are going to be engaged with the group for a bit of time, so we can help kind of implement that flavor of Left Field in PassivePockets as best we can. We'll try to ensure that a lot of that sticks and goes forward, because it's what made Left Field special in my mind.
Yeah, well said. And I think also just we haven't really mentioned it, but we will be part of PassivePockets going forward. You're going to see our faces at events. The podcast will go on, and some of us will be working for PassivePockets for at least the short term, and then as it grows, hopefully for longer term as well. And they were very as going through the negotiations and talking with BiggerPockets, it was very important to them that we come over and have some continuity. So really excited about that. And then Pat, how do you invest differently after working for LFI, with LFI, being a member for the last 3 or 4 years? How has that changed your investing?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I was originally a Burr guy, then a turnkey guy, and then transitioned over to syndications. And since joining LFI, well, first off, the reason I joined LFI was because most of the other communities and most of the other groups that were out there either had a very close affiliation with sponsors and then had an inherent conflict of interest, or were kind of sales funnely. So LFI, what attracted me here was it's agnostic. It was sponsor agnostic. Of course, we have our preferred partners and people we like doing business with, but there's no sales pitch, there's no push, there's no conflict of interest really there. So that was the big thing for me. And how my investing has improved since I've joined LFI, I was just a multifamily guy coming in the door. I didn't even know all these other asset classes existed. So being able to find other asset classes that have different appreciation and depreciation waves, something that could be counter-cyclical to multifamily to kind of even out the entire investment portfolio, is enormous, because I didn't even know that stuff existed beforehand. To go on top of that, now that you have different asset classes, they all have different types of metrics that you need to do in your underwriting. So as a result of getting exposure to all those and just talking with people in the forums, learning from people who've been investing in some of these asset classes for multiple years, my due diligence has really greatly increased and gotten a little bit more technical.
Yeah, and it's difficult, right? The more asset classes you learn about, I'll only speak for a couple of us, Ryan, Chad, that chase the shiny object anytime it appears. It is nice to have this community that kind of reels you in and says, hey, maybe we ought to look deeper into that, or kind of slow the roll. And some of the things that we've learned over the years, one of the biggest ones I think is the David Shirky rule, right? Which I think we all wish we would have adhered to a little bit more at times, which is invest with a sponsor, wait 1 year before you make your second investment or recommend it to anybody. And I think had I done that, I would have been in a much better situation regarding a couple of sponsors, but we won't go too deep into that. So moving on to you, Sean, what's your biggest takeaway from the 4 years when we started this? As Chad mentioned, we were going to be a group of 12 people sitting around at a restaurant in Columbus, Ohio, and turned out pandemic stopped that. We went online, so we've been here 4 years together doing this. What's the biggest takeaway for you?
Yeah, I mean, other than what Pat said as far as being a better and a smarter investor, which I think we would all, shake our heads positively at, it's that you can never ask enough questions, right? We thought when we put some of those initial tools together that we were capturing all the best questions, and we thought we were so smart that we were going to have these phone calls with these sponsors and ask questions, and we captured that for ourselves, we captured it for our community, and yet here we are in a very turbulent environment in the investing space, passive investing space. And I may take this in a direction you may have to edit out, Jim, because I don't know if you'll appreciate this, but I think coupled with that, the biggest takeaway is we did a disservice to our community in a certain way, in that we missed the boat, I think, in not maybe asking all of the right questions. And so we can take that as a learning tool going forward as individuals, investors, as well as, when we move to PassivePockets and thinking through not 6 months, not 1 year, but 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the road, and what can happen in the environment to make things go poorly, and just think through that worst case scenario situation. Because I don't think we did that enough. I think we tried, given the information that we had and given where we were as individuals in our investing space. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but it's related. That my biggest takeaway is I became a better investor, but also I think we missed the boat in some areas and not thinking through some things. And some of that's Monday morning quarterbacking for sure.
Yeah, but I think it's appropriate. Just 1 second, Chad. It does make sense that we weren't perfect on everything, right? Of course not. But one of the things that this partnership with BiggerPockets and PassivePockets is going to do is we're going to have the resources now to update some of those tools and add some of the questions that maybe we should have had. And it's a learning experience. Is the community overall, where everyone's better investors. There's always going to be chances to lose money. It's investing, right? It's not just winning. So I think, but it makes sense what you said. And then Chad, you have a comment?
Yeah, no, kind of more along those lines. I kind of articulated as we always need to be active passive investors, and this is proof positive, like Sean's saying, of we thought we were doing a pretty good job. There were things we could have done better. Resources were an issue for sure along the way, but even ignorance, just not totally getting into what we are. We think we can solve the resource side of this by the partnership with Bigger Pockets. Then we can help educate ourselves better to provide better tools, hopefully, too, that all kind of rounds it out and moves forward in a better way with the future state than what we've been able to do ourselves.
Yeah, I like that. I do.
Yeah, and I think I just continue to add on. Sorry, Jim.
Yeah.
One of the things that we said very early on was know, like, and trust, right? And I think we've all said that's kind of out the window now. There's plenty of sponsors that we really, really like. We know them very well. We've broken bread with some of them, and we trusted them. And we're finding out now those three little words just haven't been enough in some cases. So
yeah, and I really agree with that. At the same time, I think without going into detail on each case, with each one of those that we know, like, and trusted, and they kind of fell flat or didn't come through, I now can look in retrospect and say, oh, wait, that person, their communication was terrible from the start, but I excused it because of the other stuff. And so I think I could almost, with every one of them, find the weak link or the flaw that I overlooked because of know, like, and trust. So I still want to know, like, and trust, but I'm not going to let a flaw overcome the know, like, and trust anymore. So that might be the biggest lesson that I've learned from this whole period. Yeah, Pat.
Yeah, to piggyback on top of that, I agree. I'm still going to keep the three words, know, like, and trust. I'm just going to be very, very picky and selective with my trust.
Yeah, perfect.
More so than I was before.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so Ryan, we've done this for 4 years. Did we accomplish what we set out to do as left field investors?
Yeah, I think one of the things that maybe is a little bit unspoken about what we accomplished, but I think we did, is an awareness to this type of investing. I mean, one of the reasons that we connected is because there was really no one in your backyard or your front yard or anywhere near you who was talking about this kind of investing. We all started thinking we were the only ones doing it. And as the community grew, I remember specifically a moment at the 22 meetup where there were multiple members saying, I've been looking for something like this for so long. I've been listening to podcasts and looking at Google, and that's the only way I made a decision. That's how I started. I made decisions educated through Podcast University, and then made a decision in a vacuum. And so I think one of the things that we did and accomplished is to raise awareness that this type of investing, through its good and bad, is an option. And I think there's a lot of people who are still unaware of it. So that's one thing I think. And I think that we enhance the ability to understand that investing like this is a community sport, a team sport, and that it's done better with others. We all might feel like we're the best investor. I certainly don't, but we all might feel like we've got it and understand it. But I think investing through the power of a community and investing as a team sport is a huge element in being successful over the long term. We've seen clubs like the Deep Due Diligence Club emerge from LFI, and that's just a testament to how you can do this better with 1-2 other people, a large community. And as we really exponentially grow the community through PassivePockets, I think that element will just enhance itself.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's a team sport, and I cannot. That's it, right? You cannot do this alone. I really think if you try to do this alone, you're going to be in a world of hurt. And speaking of a world of hurt, turning to Steve, the next question: this community, right? Why is it even more important now in such a difficult market, difficult times, right? You wrote a whole book about all the mistakes you made, and we've all made most of them. And we shared some of those with you, but you've been doing this for a long time, and you've made the mistakes. But
yeah, community is absolutely important in this type of investing. Just because you can trade ideas, you can get suggestions about asset classes, geography, sponsors, especially. And so, yeah, I've been passive investing for, I believe it's about 15 years now. And I made a lot of mistakes early on because, like Ryan said, I was making a lot of my investment decisions in a vacuum. I had no one to bounce ideas off of. And then lo and behold, I got an email from a active real estate group. A guy named Jim Pfeiffer was going to talk about passive investing. And I said, oh my gosh, this guy's doing exactly what I'm doing. And he's right in my backyard. So we met at that Starbucks in Worthington, I think maybe 4.5, well, probably almost 5 years ago, I guess now. Yeah, you're the first person I had an actual conversation about passive investing. That was fantastic. And so with Left Field Investors, we just had we had a great community with plenty of discussions, either in person, virtually, of course, in our active forum. But yeah, when you get into trouble with your deals, it's absolutely crucial that you kind of do a post-mortem as to what happened, why did this happen, what could I have done differently. And there's so many lessons you can learn, so many things that you may not even think about. Then you talk to Pat or Chad or someone else, and you realize, oh my gosh, I need to think about that. And so in your next investment, you'll know to look for that, and you'll kind of add it to your checklist of 100 things to look at. And now you have 101 things to look at. So I think this, a community is absolutely important. And when we merge with PassivePockets, that's going to even be 10x or even 100x, because there's going to be that many more community members that you can bounce ideas off of.
Right. I totally agree with that. And I remember our first meeting, and I've told this story a bunch of times, but man, the first time you said, hey, yeah, I'm investing with this operator. And I mind blown. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm investing with that operator. And then you said, I'm in this deal. I'm like, I'm in that deal. And unfortunately, it's not one of the better deals we were in, but at least we were in it together, right? It just gave me a little bit of a confidence, even though it might not have worked out quite as well as we thought. But okay, I want to change now, and I'm just going to kind of open it up to the group, and we'll see if we can keep this chaos, because I know when all 6 of us get together, all you can hear is everybody chattering. So let's take turns. But what is someone chime in here? What's the best memory you have of LFI, of the community, of being together? What's something that just kind of sticks out for you guys? Yeah, Ryan.
I kind of hinted at it a little bit earlier, but that first meetup in October of 22 was, that was incredible, because we had been, like we are right now, we were all on camera for almost 2 years, and that's all we had. I mean, we started in the COVID world, and the first time I met any of the rest of you other than Jim was at that first meetup. And then to have the camaraderie and electricity in those the rooms, those couple days of everybody just, I've been waiting for something like this, and now we get to meet, and we get to meet operators, and we get to talk with other people. It was just kind of a culmination of all the efforts we put into what this community really is and grew to. So that was a favorite memory for me.
Yeah, I agree. That was confirmation, right? Of holy cow, we built this thing, and we thought most of the people were kind of people you'd want to hang out with, but you don't know until you're in person live. And it was just like, oh yeah, this is awesome. And also, the main thing I remember is those headphones weren't part of Pat when he was like in real life, because he's always got the headphones on, and I didn't recognize him without the
You never know.
headphones. But Chad, did you have something to add?
So my that absolutely is a monumental moment, but I hearken back to the very, very beginning. And this really started with Jim, Steve, and Sean, and another individual really starting this out and talking about it. And word got to me that this was going on. And I love telling the story of, I signed up and had no idea what you guys were doing, because I didn't know. I didn't understand. It never really got to articulate what the plan was. It was just, hey, we're putting this syndication group together. Do you want to join? Yes, I'm all over it. That decision to get involved with you guys has been incredible, to be on a 4-year journey plus at this point, and what that's done for my wealth building, my knowledge, the whole gamut, let alone me being able to help others and spread that word across our community. That decision that I had no idea what I was signing up for has been one of the biggest things in my life to affect me the way that it has. So It was the dumbest or smartest thing I ever did. I don't know, but
yeah, I don't know if it was.
I'm glad
I don't know if it was
I'm
the
glad I
dumbest
did
or
it.
smartest thing either, but I do remember. We were looking for more help, and every time we said, "Hey, anybody help out with this?" Chad was like, "Boom, ready to go," and they've been a great partner since then. So that's awesome. Anybody else have a memory they want to share?
My favorite memory is no less than the 9 times you called me to tell me that you were quitting LFI. So to think that we're now at this point, it's pretty special.
That's true.
You made it, man. You didn't quit.
Yeah.
You didn't tender your resignation. Way to go.
There were some
we weren't going to accept it
yeah,
anyway.
exactly.
Yeah.
There were some times there, that's for sure, because, and again, not to pump ourselves up, but we were all volunteers, right? We didn't have any revenue or anything for 2 years. We're all just doing this in our spare time, which of course we all have plenty of spare time, right? So yeah, there were a number of calls to Sean where I'm like, what are we doing? And Sean talked me off the ledge multiple times. So I do appreciate that.
There's one after maybe over some beers. I'll tell you in more detail how I almost ended up in a McDonald's hot coffees lawsuit situation because of you over one of your phone calls. But, glad you made it through.
That could have been some great passive income.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We're always thinking passive income. All right. So back to the scheduled program. What is the one thing, the most important thing that you want to make sure transfers to PassivePockets that we do now at LFI, or something that you want to make sure, hey, we're moving in a different direction, but it's still going to be similar. What would that thing be?
For me, it's making sure that the community is preserved and that obviously the groups, the membership is going to grow. So you're going to lose a little bit of that intimacy and that personal identification with people. Now, there's people I know on the forums just by seeing their picture, and then you see them at the meetup or whatever, and you just talk to them like like it was just last week you saw them rather than last year. So we're going to unfortunately lose a little bit of that just because of the growth. But being able to have people self-select into smaller groups to find whatever niche it is that they're looking for, be it a specific type of interest, specific type of asset class or something like that, and have that ability to really talk, as actual people, not just forum posters. Talk about your life, talk about what your goals are for your family and stuff like that, and really get to know somebody and get financially vulnerable with them. Because we're all kind of in this, and if you're off on your own island, it's a lot harder than if you got a group of people.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's one of the things that I also want to make sure I say culture. I want to make sure the culture stays the same, but really when we go to the meetup, when we're on the forum, it always surprises me that guy or gal is not part of this community, right? The annoying person or the person that's trying to troll you on a forum post, other than Sean, that person is not in the community. And that's what I want to make sure that the community culture, that the community people that in it have built stays where you are comfortable. And there will be subgroups, which is why I think growing the community is great, because then you can really go in and find your people, right? And so we'll have the big group and then some smaller groups. And so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, I was going to mention pretty much the same thing, that our culture and especially in our forum is just very collegial, very respectable. I mean, everybody, I don't remember seeing a single post, and I think I've read every single post in the LFI forum, and I don't remember any post where anyone was someone got angry at somebody or put someone down or that kind of thing. So I hope that does transfer over to PassivePockets, because on BiggerPockets you can see that there are some posts that aren't so friendly, and I hope that does not transfer over to PassivePockets, because we want this community to grow, and the more people who are in this, the more we learn from each other.
Yeah, and I think that'll be one of the benefits of having kind of a closed, paid membership community that PassivePockets will be, is going to keep that, because you are going to have to make a small commitment to join this community. And so if you make that commitment, you're going to want to make sure that the community is a comfortable place. And we know there are some other passive investing groups, and each person, we always say, you got to find one that fits, how your personality is, that fits with that culture. And there's some that are a little bit more abrupt and intimidating. And we've always tried to make LFI a comfortable place to go. And one of the main things that we've been talking about with PassivePockets is let's make sure that translates. So 100% agree with that. And So I have one more, and everyone can chime in, but I'm going to direct this to Chad, because Chad has been, he made the choice to go full time and quit his regular job, become full time LFI. And, we couldn't have done any of this without all six of the people on this call. But the last couple of years, Chad has just been killing it and spending his full time job doing this underpaid. So I want to leave it with you, Chad. When we're talking about moving on, LFI is going to become passive pockets. And we've mentioned it. We've mentioned a lot of these things, but why is this going to be beneficial to our LP community members? And again, we've touched on it, we've said it, but just kind of encapsulate. What do you think is going to be, moving forward? I'm an LP, bigger pockets is coming, LFI is going to change. What am I going to get out of it?
Yeah, I think there's a few different aspects. I think the biggest thing is the perk of you mentioning a. I want to say first and foremost, left field would not be what it is today without Jim Pfeiffer having thrown himself in for 4 years. I've been lucky enough to throw myself in for a couple full time, but I want to spread that out first. But that kind of leads to my points of Jim and I have been doing this full time for a couple years. Jim, 4 years. Pat and Ryan have been pitching in, several days a week, more than they say they do. Steve and Sean have been heavily involved when they can as well. But we've reached a point where we're tapping out, where we're burning out. And it's nice to be able to pass that torch to full resources. I mean, we've met content groups and marketing teams and sales teams. That was all of us. We try to manage all those hats, and that's works great for a long time. And we all have enough passion around it that it kept us going a long time, but it wears and tears as well. Yeah, I'll be the first to admit it. So I'm glad that what I feel like is going to happen is the trajectory that we were on is going to continue on because of the resources, but because of the culture that Bigger Pockets is. The fact they're going to make Passive Pockets feel very similar to our community, I think I'm very excited about it. It's their community now. And I'm excited about that because I'd like to see where this can go based on us forming a hobby that was going to be 10 or 12 people, turning it into a business accidentally. You talk about being an accidental landlord. Well, now you're an accidental businessman too, entrepreneur. And then now actually letting it be a big boy company. This has grown into a real boy now. Now I want to see what this real boy can do. I'm really excited to see where this can go over the next few years with them behind this. It's got a great upside to it, I feel like. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I completely agree with that. And we've always said, as the founders of Left Field Investors, that we're not in this for the money, because there hasn't been any, but that when a partner comes to us and says, hey, we'll give you some money to do this, we would always say, wait, we're going to make sure that this goes to the benefit of our LP members, our community members first, that we're not going to do something that doesn't benefit them. And I think we've been really true to that. And I feel like this transition, this partnership to become Passive Pockets also lives up to that this is what's best for our community members, because as we all know, we haven't had the resources that we've wanted to really push some of the projects. And now we'll have that. We will be able to produce best in class everything for our community members through this partnership. So I could not be more excited. I couldn't be more thankful to all, everyone on this call who's just put everything into LFI. And we're going to continue to put that into Passive Pockets, and just super excited to where it's going. So I will pause for a second. If anyone has any last words as an LFI founder before we transition to Passive Pockets, now is your time.
I want to echo one thing that Chad said. He mentioned, marketing and content teams and podcast producers and tech support and everything like that. And that is all the people on this call right now. So from an LP perspective, I think the real benefit is having dedicated people who are doing that job and nothing else, so that we can focus on the content generation and making LFI and Passive Pockets the best thing that it could possibly be, without being, I don't want to say distracted by all that other work, but we can solely focus on building the best LP related content that's out there.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's a great way to end. So I want to thank all of our community members who are listening to the podcast for being part of the Left Field Investor community. I want to thank the founders for making that possible. And I want to thank BiggerPockets for giving us the opportunity to put some resources into LFI, turn it into PassivePockets, and it is going to be the best version of Left Field Investors you can imagine with the backing of BiggerPockets. So welcome, PassivePockets, and thank you all. Thanks for hanging out in the left field with us today. If you are interested in becoming a left fielder, you can find us on the World Wide Web at www.leftfieldinvestor.com and click the subscribe button to join our community. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe to the show on your podcast player so you don't miss an episode. If you really enjoyed the show, a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts would be appreciated.
This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be considered financial advice. Before making any decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Passive Investing from Left Field and Left Field Investors. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.